Doug Rawlins, leader of the caucus, constituency chairman of the DA, the two municipal managers down here, Ugu and with the Hibiscus Coast Municipality, they've been under severe pressure. And they've been holding out so far. What is the DA's take on the situation at the moment?
I'm very pleased to say that the ANC actually did change them from the previous municipal managers that they've had. I understand they've got a huge job and under huge pressure. We will support them as far as possible to get both municipalities operational and functional and to perform as well as possible. However, we feel that a lot of these problems that they have now and encountering with the unions is the fact that they do have this tripartite alliance and they are being held ransom by the workforce. That is something that they should address, the ANC should address, and it's about time they stand on their own two feet.
Well, they have been taking a reasonably strong stance, but now the possible outcome can be strikes. I mean, where do we go then from there? It's nearly season time again.
Yes, that is always a problem that you can encounter, and that is always something that we need to be aware of. Contingency plans need to be put into place. Usually, that when that happens, we make use of private people to assist us to get some of the services delivered. Obviously, the safety and health issues are of most importance for the citizens.
Yes, and then, of course, it's no work, no pay, so it'll depend on who's going to blink first.
That's correct, yes. And in the end, the union bosses very often lead these things, or they do lead these stayaways and these strikes. And the people that really suffer is the workers, because in the end, they don't get that money.
Okay, let's isolate one or two of the issues. The clocking in and clocking out system in HCM. There's big resistance amongst the SAMWU members about this. What is the DA's opinion on the whole situation?
I must tell you that we are supporting the implementation of the time management system. We are supporting the municipal manager. I want to make it clear that it wasn't his decision alone, but it was a full council decision that we follow this route. The whole object of this is to ensure that productivity takes place and that we get the maximum from our workforce, which we can clearly see from the state of the municipality that is not the case at the moment.
Another contentious issue is the intention to implement a new parking meter system. And what I've heard from certain sections of ratepayers out there is that they say the DA should be fighting this kind of thing more instead of being in collusion, as they say, with the ANC. They are against the parking meter, especially in certain areas, the parking meter system. What is your reaction to that one?
Now, I believe that it is a contentious issue. We know that in certain areas we have huge problems with parking. The congestion is just too much, particularly Port Shepstone CBD. And some system must be implemented to ensure the flow of traffic, to ensure that there's more parking. But also there's another angle to this, particularly in Port Shepstone, in that we need to find parking spaces, maybe look in the long term at parking garages, because this town is not going to get smaller and the congestion is going to get bigger, and the parking system alone is not going to solve it. We do have our concerns in areas like Port Edward and Aberdeen, where there is not yet a problem. It could become a problem in the future, and we feel that it should only be implemented there when it actually becomes a problem. I also understand that particularly in the Margate area, the businesses there aren't too happy, especially with the pay parking on the beaches. I understand that it's been increased from 2 hours to 3 hours, but when you're on holiday and you spend the day on the beach, it does become a problem. So I understand their concerns, but you'll always have the one side against the other, and some ratepayers will be happy with it. Some businesses might be happy with it, others not. I know in Port Shepstone, for instance, if your business depends on pedestrian traffic, the traffic system doesn't really matter. You'd obviously want to park your own vehicles there, your staff vehicles there. But if you're dependent on people coming into town for your business to run and they don't find a parking in the area, they will obviously be quite happy to have it implemented. So, there's a two-way street on this. From the DA's point of view, I believe it needs to be controlled. We need to have control over the situation. And particularly if you look at the taxi rank areas, there is very little control. the traffic go in and out of that place. It's impossible to move there almost. So we need to find systems. We need to find a system that alleviates the problem in the meantime, and then look at a long-term solution.
Doug, what one finds is that although there is, although people admit, ratepayers admit that there's been a great improvement since the new management has taken over, there are elements, and I think if I'm correct if I say that some elements of AfriForum say that they cannot live on promises, and they've lost, they've lost confidence, and that we should not be taken for a ride, so to speak, and that there should be stronger action and maybe a withholding of rates.
Yeah. I must just make it clear that AfriForum is not an arm of the DA. We recognise that some of the work they do is good work. They do good work at times, but they are not an extension of us, and we cannot always agree with what they do. I know that services is not at the level where it should be. We can all see that. We'd like to see that the basic services levels are increased and improved, because once that is in place, 99% of your ratepayers will be happy. The other 1% complaints will go around town planning issues and implementation of bylaws in certain areas, or the lack of it. But the main issue is if your street lights work, if your verges are clean, if your potholes are fixed, the robots are repaired as they break, and there's a time frame to get these things done as soon as it goes wrong. And we stick to programs of cleaning the streets and cleaning the verges and trimming them properly, sort out the stormwater issues. Those are basic service delivery issues that we need to look at and need to sort out. Once that is done, then most of the issues will come right. I've got a lot of confidence in Mr. Mbili. Since he started there, first as the HOD for community services, he brought in a lot of energy and a lot of plans, and it looks like we're moving in the right direction. Obviously now he's been hampered by the unions and by the workforce to a certain extent, and he needs our support to get that going.
Just to clear up an issue, I think it has already been, but just to make doubly sure, the accusation that the process followed with the implementation of the parking meters, that it's been illegal. Where do we stand on that?
I wouldn't go as far as saying it is illegal. It's been under discussion since we've had ACE parking that left us, I think, in 2008 or 9, I'm not quite sure. And since then, at the Safety and Security Portfolio meeting at the time, it's been discussed on a regular basis that we need to find a solution or some form of replacement to ensure that traffic flow is better, particularly in Port Shepstone. It was raised there. The municipal manager went ahead on a resolution that was taken, I think, quite a few years before then, where it referred to the Port Shepstone parking area, Port Shepstone CBD area. And I think his intention was to get things done. He is a man that wants to get things done. And he didn't follow the letter of the resolution. So I think it's more irregularity maybe that we've rectified at the last council than actually an illegal act. So I wouldn't go along with AfriForum's stance that it is an illegal act that was taken.
Let's look at Ugu. Mr. Mbili's problems seem to be, much smaller than Mr. Didi Naidu's at Ugu. What is your take on Ugu? Because, I mean, he's been quite open. He says they're bankrupt. And by the 20th of November, if these measures aren't implemented, then they're going down the tubes.
Yeah. Well, the DA in the form of Councillor Dave Snashall has been bringing this to the fore for the last couple of years, saying that Ugu was technically bankrupt, and he was shut down, and he was charged for breaking the code of conduct of councillors. Obviously, nothing came of that because what he stated was the truth, and he took his facts and his figures from the auditor's reports. And he has now been vindicated, and that he was telling the truth all along, and now it's been admitted that they are bankrupt. I see a hard road forward for Ugu to become liquid again and to perform their tasks adequately. Austerity measures that is being proposed has to take place. The staff component will have to be reduced drastically, amongst others, and of course the overtime, that was also the case at Hibiscus Coast, is far too high. Where necessary, we need to find service providers that can actually do the job. One proposal is, and it might become a reality, is that Mgeni Water might take over the functions of Ugu. But, you know, I take my hat off to Didi Naidu for sitting there, taking up the challenge with all the pressure around him. And from our side, we will support him. I think Dave Snashall, as a councillor at Ugu, also welcomed him to Ugu and wished him the best.
Well, as I said to him in an interview, he's been given, you know, in the rugby parlance, he's been given a hospital pass. Now, he's now sitting with the, you know, with the whole shebang. What happened now? What happens to the people who caused this? I mean, they're all over the place, gone, and nothing happens. Or is there any way of getting them to, you know, to take responsibility?
Well, what was happening here is actually what's happening throughout the country, and where people that commit these or don't fulfill their tasks and allow things to degrade to this extent, get away with it and get redeployed in other departments. From our point of view, they should be held accountable. They were appointed as accountable officers, and they should be held accountable. Taken to the fullest extent of the law, they need to be charged if necessary, and they need to face the legal consequences.
What are the chances of that happening?
Under the current system, I don't hold out too much hope.
Okay, let's have a look at, while we have the opportunity, a national event that happened last night. Your leader, Helen, you know, at and the way I understand it, it was a state occasion which turned into a party occasion, and then she was shut down. You know, your take on that one?
Correct. She quite clearly stated that she phoned President Zuma on the Wednesday evening to say that this event that is supposed to be a state event is being turned into a political party event because they are bussing in ANC activists to it, and that there would be problems, and she was proved to be correct. The most disheartening thing about this is the fact that our president sits there, allows this to happen, and he does not allow or speak to his constituency, his supporters, to say, but this is undemocratic. You need to follow the processes. You need to allow the other parties to give their voice. What kind of a democracy do you have if you only allow one party to speak? That is not a democracy. That becomes a dictatorship. And I'm very upset that the head of state pays so little attention to a multi-party democracy system. I wonder if he understands democracy properly.
Do they credit Marius Frans van? He tried to you know, to calm them down, but it didn't happen. It didn't work.
In a very insincere way. I think he quite enjoyed it because they expected this. That is my take on this.
Doug, anything else in closing?
Well, yes, I would like to urge all our people to register to vote for next year's elections. It is a very important election coming up. We cannot allow what is continuing in this country to go on the path it is because it's on a downhill slide. We need to see change, and we urge people to register so that they can vote in next year's elections. This weekend, the 9th and the 10th, is the registration weekend where all the voting stations will be open for registration. So please take your barcoded ID book there and go and register. It takes 5 minutes of your time.
And obviously, you mean they shouldn't vote for any other party?
As a DA member and councillor and local leader, I would urge them to vote for the Democratic Alliance because we are the party of the future.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dougie. Thanks very much. You got in your commercial, so that's great.
Thank you very much, Johan. I appreciate that.